Hello everybody, my name is Happy Dude, and welcome back to Cosmoteer. Now, a new update for Cosmoteer just went up, and it added a new shipbuilding piece called the Explosive Charge. And this explosive charge allows you to destroy parts of your own ship by manually detonating it. And I thought that I would show you some stuff that it can be used for. Now, what the explosive charge does on an individual level is it destroys a 3-block grid around the initial space, so a total of 9 blocks including the center, and then it damages the 3 blocks on each side with primary damage in the middle piece. You can see it roughly does 800 damage to the center block and around 400 to the 2 sides away from that middle. Now, even though this is just interesting in a mechanic sense, like you could have a explosive block on top of some armor and just run into an enemy and detonate it just to deal a little bit of damage. What I used it for, and what I think is very fun to do, is use it in slightly different ways than it was probably originally intended for. So you can see here we've got this weird looking base ship. It's really, there's not too much special about it. It looks really janky. You can see there's just a bunch of tiny thrusters here. There's really nothing interesting other than the way that we've got these smaller units. I'm just doing this to show you how it moves, but other than there's these smaller units to the sides which seem to be just barely connected to it, and we're missing a whole lot of space here in the middle that we could have filled up, but we ended up not filling up. Now, this is the reason why, and let me show you why I like these explosive cubes so much. So we double click explosive charges, which selects all the explosive charges in the entire ship, and right now this ship is registering as a single vehicle, but once we have all these charges selected and we hit explode, all of these ships are now, it went from 1 ship to now 5 ships. And if we do, let's say, I don't know, we can take this, let's take the back part just completely out of it. So we'll send the back. It cannot go backwards because it doesn't have any rear thrusters. That was a terrible mistake. Okay. It finally got away from this ship right here. Oh. that was a terrible mess up. I'll speed this up. But anyway, so now that we have disconnected from the base platform, oh dear. There we go. Yeah, engine placement might be a little bit rough, but this was very, very quick. I built these ships, so this isn't an actual ship build that I would use, but we created 5 ships from 1 ship because each of these individual modules has a command center in them. This little piece in the middle, a command room. And because there are individual ones on each of these ship pieces, when the explosive charges went off and disconnected us from the main ship, it means that each of these can be flown and controlled independently, and so they are all individual ships now. And so that allows you to have a little bit more flexibility as far as what you put in all of these pieces. It also allows you to create a situation where if you're fighting a huge enemy that is built to destroy one main target, maybe they have a lot of these ion beams right here, the big ion beam emitters that just really heavily hit a single area, and your ship is taking a lot of damage and you want it to spread out. Well, now you can detonate all of these charges and get them to jump out of there. And you can also put them in formation so that they can move in a formation to any place that you want to. You can see I've set up all of mine a little bit differently other than these two on the right and left, which I think have identical but mirrored layouts. This middle one is a rocket base ship. We've got ion and then emitters and then kind of a mix of cannons and emitters. Like, there's a lot that you can do with these small-ish ships, and to kind of demonstrate exactly what you can do, I'm gonna bring all of these, they're gonna fly on a line pattern, and I'm gonna bring them down here. Okay, so you can see I've spawned a Draken Sword. It's one of the later game ships that spawn naturally in Cosmoteer. They've got 4 of these ion beam emitters and a lot of cannons on both sides. So if you're a large ship, they're just going to pelt you with these ion beam emitters or turn sideways and broadside you. But the thing about cannons is they're pretty slow. If you have a high enough maneuverability, you can move around them. And so we'll see how, now that they can't hammer a single ship with their ion emitters, and we've got 5 bodies out here, we'll see how they do. We're going to go ahead and switch their allegiance to barbarians so that they start attacking our ships. We'll set the AI to easy just so that it's got an actual chance at a fight. And then we'll start positioning our ships, like which sides they'll intercept everything right now. Maybe we'll do some of... I mean, we can probably just put this one at the back. If you don't know how to maneuver this already, you can hold in Shift, and when you're deciding where your ships go in the tactical menu, when you hold in the right click, you can position their orientation and the arc that they will use to get there. I actually don't like this arc, so we're going to take it a little bit this way so that it comes around on the right side. Okay, let's finish up choosing where these ships should all go. Alright, so now we have selected paths for all of our fighters, and I need to emphasize that even though having a fleet is good in multiplayer, this way of separating your core ship with explosives and then piloting each piece individually is very much a single-player aspect because it requires a lot of tactics for it to work. And again, these ship pieces are something that I cooked up like within half an hour because I was just very excited to test the concept, and so it's not going to be anything incredible, but let's see how the 5 pieces destroys this Drakon sword when a single ship piece with the low power level that it was would have been completely annihilated. I have it on the slower frame setting, so immediately our large ship is being hammered by those lasers, which really goes to show how much those lasers would have just cut straight through a base ship and wouldn't have done anything. The missiles from the lead ship are pretty much hammering the side of it. Our medium ship here looks like it's about to get lasered a bit. The sword appears to be turning so that it can broadside some of our ships with their cannons. I really need to work out the engines for these smaller ships because this is getting just destroyed, hammered by cannonballs right now. Okay, so our smaller ship is actually keeping pace with everything pretty well. I don't know if it's trying to turn to run here or what it's doing, but it's left its backside pretty exposed. So you can see, even though individual ships might be taking a lot of damage, the fact that we've split our attack up into so many small pieces has really made a huge difference in this fight. So it's not going down quite yet. It's still being cut through with some of our weapons. But it's going a lot better than it would have been if it fought all of these pieces just as an individual battle. It's still got both of its main cannons, and our missile ship is kind of getting destroyed here. But at least we stand a small chance against a ship that had a huge power level advantage going into this fight. Or a huge currency advantage at the very least. Okay, so you can see our biggest ship has taken enough damage to where it's basically gonna collapse. Although our smaller ones have managed to maneuver behind this thing and just they've been tearing out the energy cores just while the bigger ship has been distracted with this main piece. So that distraction aspect really comes into handy. Although we've got to maneuver this smaller ship or it's going to get torn to pieces. Maybe just right inside of this, kind of right there, so that it doesn't get hit with too many of these cannons. Oh, okay, the armor held on that side, that's good. I think we can go ahead and just speed this up. I've given a good enough of a demonstration of what it can do. So you can see it's definitely taking some time for everything to go, because they're smaller ships, so it's going to take a lot longer to get through the enemy's lines. Okay, that bottom left ship just took a lot of cannon fire. But again, this is me just speeding things up, because I don't want this to take forever. So even with very little input from me, when it's super sped up like this, they're still managing to kind of handle themselves you know, do everything that they need to do to take apart this ship. Because the AI is fairly, like it's robust enough to handle things like this. Okay, that's probably good. I'm just gonna go ahead and pause there and delete all this stuff. Yep, that's all removed. And delete those little pieces as well. Okay, so that was the big thing that I was very interested in, was creating a ship. Like, I know there are a few ships that are built like a junkyard, like a bunch of smaller cells connected through those scaffolding pieces or small corridors. And I think that there is somehow an ideal ship that functions as a single body, but when pressured can just erupt into a bunch of tiny fighters, each with their own control rooms to be controlled individually and weapon systems and everything sorted out, so that it can then be used as like a swarming kind of ship. And then afterwards you just have this swarm of fighters that you can take anywhere, and assuming that you saved the first design of your ship, which, if you don't know already, you can do by clicking these little bars and then hitting Save Ship Design. If you save the ship design before you explode it into your tiny little fighters, then when you have enough money, you can just rebuild the larger ship, and you'll have the larger ship and the small fighters that are left. So I thought that was really fun and cool and interesting, and I wanted to show it off to you. The other thing that you can do with these explosive charges, and again, these are aside from the main thing that you're going to be using them for, which is remodeling the interior of your ship in single player, and possibly making some impromptu warheads or battering devices if that's a route that you want to experiment with, maybe to get through some initial shields before you bombard them. This is a secondary function that I found that works very, very, very well with ships that maybe have an overuse of weapon system or tend to be very shoddy in the defense aspect, but are incredibly good at offense, or just, it's just a good technique to use in general in single player. So let's say that you have a ship like this, one that's right in front of you right now. You've got a ton of lasers, you got a decent number of shields, you're destroying anything that's low to mid tier, and anything the higher tiers you can generally deal with. But maybe you come across a massive ship, a ship that you're probably not going to be able to deal with this ship alone, but you have it constructed in such a way that you can't remodel it without destroying the whole thing, and you really don't want to do that, and you just needed to get past this specific fight that you're going on about. Well, there is a way to use explosive charges to make amazing things happen with a ship like this. So you can see this control room used to be in the center right here, and I moved that from the center, built some scaffolding, and put it right here for a specific function that I think is incredibly interesting, and I will be using in single player when I continue my Iron Man run. But right now, I can take this ship out because this is just illustrating the same concept. But right now, if I spawn in an enemy ship, let's make it big enough to be threatening. Let's do maybe something like the Hammerhead. So if I spawn in a Hammerhead ship, it's gigantic. You know, it's terrifying. We'll put it like right here at an angle. So it's there. It's got all of its crazy cannons and things. I'm going to go ahead and pause. And if we take the Hammerhead and change its allegiance to Barbarian, change its AI to Easy, it's going to start coming after our tiny ship. But what we can do now that we've got our control room set up like this is I'm going to position this room to the side now, specifically at an angle, and I'll show you why that's important just here in a second. So now that we've got the room at an angle, we're going to go ahead and select this bomb and let the engines start to fire up as they spin. And as it gets to the crux of this spin here, we're going to detonate this explosive charge, which will make us lose control of the engines. So you got to be careful how your main body of the ship is positioned when you blow this charge. But we're going to go ahead and detonate that charge. We can now no longer control this ship. It has no more control room. It is completely on its own and at the mercy of this larger Hammerhead ship, which is coming in to destroy it. Now, this is maybe the reason why you want to do something like this. So we've got this little control room here, and it was spinning, so we're going to drift away from it very slowly. The bigger ship is going to start to engage that main body. Oh, we just need a little bit more rotation here. Oh, come on, man. Oh, we're so close. I will say it helps if you've got an individual propulsion unit on the control room that you're trying to burst out of the way. This is just my first kind of dive into the concept of what you can do with this mechanic. So as the debris is moving out of the way, and it's getting just decimated by the enemy, it's just taking bullet after bullet. Honestly, it's functioning more like a bullet sponge than anything else at this moment. Oh, we're so close. It's just got to spin out of the way. Oh, we're so close. We're just right there. Okay, it should be clear now. Nope. Needs to go a little bit further. Oh, and it got hit. That's actually really good for us, because now we can instantly repair it, and this is what I was talking about. So, you've got this large husk here that still has weapons and might continue to drift around for a little while, and now you've got a whole new body of a ship here that is newly spawned, that all the crew members are going to be running around on, and you can use it to push the other body into the bigger ship as just more targets for it to hit, more weapons to fire on the enemy ship without you actually wasting anything. So we're gonna go ahead and play this here at 1x speed. We are initially spinning away, because another thing that you need to keep in mind is when your control room rebuilds an entire ship out of just this small, tiny little piece, what it also does is it contains the momentum of your spin if you get hit with an enemy missile. So we started spinning because they hit us with a laser shot, and so now the entire ship is maintaining the momentum that little control room had. But it still gives us a huge body to work with. And even though right now the method is a little bit sluggish, it's a little bit odd, it's a little bit weird to be frank, it's still, there's a lot of room for growth with it. So we're gonna tell the ship to fly directly towards the enemy. So this ship, unfortunately, I positioned it really wrong. Ideally, you would want to have the guns facing the enemy, and then it would just tear into it as we kind of recovered and did this whole thing. But I'm not used to the momentum switch that happens when the control room is lost, and I need to do a lot more testing with that. Oh no. Okay, so here we go. We're gonna head straight for the enemy now, and we can go ahead and slow it down a little bit more. So that main husk unfortunately got killed, but now we're going straight in. We're gonna attack the actual ship with our actual main body, and again, we're taking a lot of bullets because the ship that we're using is very, very weak. We're coming straight in for the cannons. They're trying to move away. They're not going to move away fast enough. Now, if we position our potential movements right behind us, so we do maybe like a right there. There we go. And we wait for all of the propulsion units to stop. There we go. Nope, the other side turned on. This has got to be, it's just so delicate. Maybe we get close enough to where it actually comes into contact with the enemy ship. Yeah, like right there. So just ramming speed towards the enemy ship, and then I'm gonna detonate the explosives one more time. So now we're drifting away again, but this time, so even though we don't have control of any of this anymore, we're still firing directly into the enemy ship right now. So we look at this as we spin away. As soon as that highlighted red area clears our ship, we'll be able to restore the entire thing. Okay, and now we can attack this from a different angle completely. I'll just adjust the rate of attack here. Yep. Okay. So our main body, or our discarded body, is now continuously firing laser bullets and shooting down the missiles of the enemy ship, while our new ship that has just recently, you know, been put together, just recently come into the world from the discarded control room of this one, is coming around at the same time. So it's now attacking it with twice the number of guns that would have been able to otherwise. Even though we're not able to connect to this, we're not able to move it at all because it doesn't have a control room, it is still taking a ton of cannon bullets, which prevents them from firing on our main ship. It's still destroying a ton of missiles. It's still laying into this ship a lot, even though as soon as it gets out of range, it's just a useless pile of scrap metal. Right now, it's helping us win in a big way, honestly. Now, when we get in front of it, it's going to be a lot harder for it to help us, just because we can't, as a ship, you can't block your own ship's bullets. Your ship will automatically stop firing if you do that. But as soon as we come around the corner here and maybe push it towards them a little bit, possibly, if we can. No, I think we pushed it out of their range, but that's all right. This is just kind of, an experimental idea that I wanted to show to you that involves the use of these explosive cubes that I thought was very fun. It was a fun mechanic, it was a fun idea, and I had a good time with it. Even if it's not maybe the most practically applicable, it's a very fun thing to experiment with and play around with. And we'll feed these two parts over to our hungry waiting ship over here. Just because they helped us so much, we'll let them help destroy some of these other parts. But yeah, that's gonna be kind of my guide on how to use explosive charges very well and in a strategic way. So, ramming device with an explosive tip, construction and reorganization of your interior ship, creating a fighter base through its use, using a lot of individual control rooms that you can then eject with the explosives and fly around individually, and then being able to eject your control room as long as you only have one on your ship. And remember, this plan of duplicating your ship and leaving one body out here to take bullets as a bullet sponge, and then recreating another one, only works if you only have the one control room. So we don't have a control room anywhere else except for down here in this tail end. So those are the 4 ways: battering ram, reconstruction, fighter planes, and duplication. And I hope this helped you out maybe on some possible uses for this crazy fun new tool that we've gotten. I'm very interested in continuing to develop both of these kind of strategic ways to use the explosive charges. I am a really big fan of creating like a huge amount of fighters and connecting them to a main body, a main viable body, and possibly seeing if I can get that main viable body to duplicate itself. Kind of use both of the methods together. But I hope you learned something. Thank you so much for coming here, everyone. This has been Cosmoteer. I've been Me Happy Dude, and as always, stay happy.